Well, thank you very much. That was a great introduction. Thank you for having us, and thank you for hanging our work and giving it a home. It's really, it's quite a great opportunity for us. Normally work, because we are installation artists, well, most of the components end up in sort of crazy places. They don't all end up together again, ever again. So yeah, it's great for us to sit here and actually, see its entirety. So yeah, it's a good experience. We're going to do an overview. We're going to have to move through it fairly quickly, but we just wanted to give you a good sense of where we come from as a shared authorship. We've been working together as filmmakers and doing other collaborations for each other since 1979, mostly with narrow gauge film or Super 8. This particular installation is our first formal installation in a commercial gallery in 1982. This is the Odessa Gallery when it was in Toronto on Queen Street. And you can kind of see when you say cinematic sensibility, we really are acting out the cinematic sensibility in this particular piece. This is called Snowshoe Bones, and I think the gallery was 75 feet by 30 feet wide, kind of a long, it used to be a bowling alley before Odessa took it over on the second floor. Concrete floor, which was great, high ceilings, good skylight. This is about Canada and being from a resource-based economy, and I think we sort of gave ourselves thematics, and then we would make work around that. So each one seems to be like a mini thesis or an essay about that we would explore. Gonna talk, Di?
Yeah, in the evening we would... No, keep going. It was mesmerizing, Kim.
I know. You're just passing.
You want to get through all these slides. We're 5 slides behind, just so you know your productivity
targets
targets
I know this is
are
gonna
already
happen.
behind.
Okay, this is a post-apocalyptic landscape. This is, we were called travestites because we were somehow trampling on the great Canadian dream of the Group of 7. Because this is a post-apocalyptic dream, there's the fire, the fluorescence. It's a very punk aesthetic because, we come out of the late 70s. We came out of art school and university in like 75, 76, 77, that time period. So it's kind of makes sense that we're engaged in kind of an expressionist form. Fluorescent paint, obviously. There's a lot of flocking. Di worked in a hobby store, so there's model making materials, kind of a real sort of promiscuity of materials happening.
And in the evening, we would arrive at around midnight, and we would film from about midnight till 4 o'clock in the gallery, where we were basically making a zombie film.
Yeah, with Frank, with the skeleton.
Worked out well.
Yeah, actually, we should go through that. This is being held up with pulleys. This is corrugated steel, not really using regular art materials. We really couldn't afford art materials. Lots of tar, lots of pigment, things that were fairly transitory. This particular painting still exists, though. It's one thing that has survived the years from 1983 to now, so that's kind of remarkable. But that's corrugated steel for you.
Because it's in a barn, it's the only thing raccoons don't know how to eat or destroy. They love fine art paper.
Raccoons are our curators.
Yeah.
Okay,
we have to move on.
Yeah, okay, moving on. You can ask questions about some of the materials and so forth later.
No, I think the Q&A's later.
Okay, this is Churadai. This is
at the BAMP Center.
Yes. And mostly drywall. We used to use a lot of drywall because we were pretty adept at, because we were the first warehouse people in Toronto, drywall became your material. So we were always sort of branding bits of drywall around. So a lot of these pieces are made out of drywall, rock salt.
I'll qualify your remark. We weren't the first warehouse people. We were the first people to sleep in the warehouses where people used to work.
Yes, exactly. We colonized the warehouses in Toronto single-handedly.
We started the condo industry.
That's right.
One flop at a time.
Exactly. So at this point, we're not on bicycle. We have a vehicle. We're collecting birch bark from dead trees. We're cavorting with beavers, so to speak. We're camping. We've got lots of time. We're collecting lots of natural materials. We're kind of hybridizing our installations with natural materials and urban sort of, industrial materials because we're coming from the industrial zone and we're,
You should explain that in terms of cavorting with beavers, we solved the ethical crisis of how to get a tree into the gallery by arranging for beavers to chew down trees for us, and then we would claim them.
Exactly.
And it would take a month sometimes to get them to chew down the tree we were interested in.
Pay for it with poison ivy.
We would lure them closer by feeding them apples on twigs of the tree we were interested in. And then they'd slowly get closer and closer. And then they discovered this tree was in the way. And then,
yeah, they weren't that keen on the birch trees, but this is again in the gallery, the same gallery. It was quite a great opportunity. Edessa would give us the space for August, so we'd have a month to install. So in this particular case, we moved in 90 sheets of 10-foot drywalled the space, cut a new door, and then worked the space with clay and pigment, chlorophyll, lots of chlorophyll. We were grinding chlorophyll plants on rocks and really inhabiting the space more than we'd ever had before. I think we were, with this show, we were trying to cure cancer. We were very much involved in holistic healing, and we actually, well, you know, when you're that age, you take on big endeavors. So this is the otter spot. This was our constellation. This was the souvenir painting. We were trying to make something that Edessa could sell, so we made a souvenir painting of the experience. And this is the actual painting. This is the real deal, but this ended up in the dumpster. And lichen and clay, drywall. And they're shadow paintings. You can see the constellation and shadow formation. And our rocks for grinding chlorophyll. And it's actually, it's a large, if you did an aerial view, it's a snowman motif, which reoccurs in a lot of our work over the years. Chlorophyll in the little pond, rock salt.
So these first 3 exhibitions we did at Edessa's were all based on an important text we had in grade school, which was called Breastplate and Buckskin. So this was our post-colonial interpretation of being exposed to that text, which was extremely colonialist, I would have to say. So we invented a kind of post-colonial discourse through materials. So at this stage here, we're reinventing cosmology, you know, naming constellations, working with sort of simple materials. So drywall can be reduced to gypsum, plant materials can be reduced to chlorophyll, which at the same time is a postmodern ploy on also the modernist education we received when we were children, through Life magazine and so forth. And still making films in the evening in the gallery. So this time, though, we're stacking all our props behind this one painting. So as each night is finished, you see an accumulation of materials that were outtakes even. In this room, we essentially created coffins that they were initially based on Sarah Bernhardt's coffin.
Yeah. Presentation open lid coffins, but they look very much like boats because we'd actually had made a kayak in our studio and we're doing kayak trips, so we used the nautical motif for these. In fact, the Winnipeg Art Gallery, not the Winnipeg, but the Vancouver Art Gallery owns these, as well as the souvenir painting, which was a...
Yes, they own our coffins.
They own our coffins.
It's very cute.
That's true.
So here's another, this was the last tree that we convinced beavers to chew down for us.
This is the chewer dipole.
And we're also mimicking a standard Northern Ontario system. In the Canadian Shield, you can't really put a telephone pole in the ground, so you use a section of culvert, fill it with rocks. We have a similar electrical system in the sense that we're running wires through the gallery, through the offices.
You can see the wires running through the tree. They go from the back room, like I said, through the office, the office was always positioned between the galleries, and then right through to the front room. And they're hooked up to a Sure Shock cattle fencer, which is on chicken stun. We've actually stepped it down a little bit. So there is a current running through it. And
just like a river running through.
Like a river running, yeah, that's right. And so all the wires end in the copper chandelier and in the armature wrapping on the quartz crystals. And the ground wire runs along the side of the gallery, and you can see the little bit of wire. You can just catch a little bit here. And it's in this matrix of salt and lemon juice on what we call the sex table, the therapy table. And if you put your hand on the salt and you touch one of the rocks, the current runs through you. You get that little tickle, and it's sort of a massage. So it's about, you know, aesthetics and
the legs
and the body.
The legs are constructed, you can't quite see here.
Yeah, that's bad.
They're wax-filled copper tubes, and in the center we create our dental signature by chewing around it. So we just mimic the beavers and how they approach that. So it has not only our dental signature, but we also had an audio link to this too. It'd be difficult to explain.
Actually,
However,
each one of the installations did have an audio component.
we had noticed at the time that a lot of intellectuals were positively terrified of New Age just because of the sheer irrationality of it. So we often work some of these systems through that kind of panic.
Oh, yeah. This is the Birch Girl. This is birch bark, lipstick, and shoe polish. And this is a version of what you saw on the wall at the Odessa Gallery in the Chew or Die installation with the earring. This is a more brutal version, that we did in Sicily. And to do this in Sicily, we went to Honest Ed's and bought large suitcases and brought birch bark back to kind of recolonized. Okay, we have to move fast. I just pinched me. So this is Sicily. This is, what? You don't want me to talk about it?
No, I was going to say that we now switch to a rules-based type construction where whatever we made had to fit into a certain size of suitcase, so there'd be no shipping. And any materials that we used had to be found at a pharmacy. So in this case, all the black materials are shoe polish, all the red is lipstick. The adhesives are strange concoctions we made using Vaseline and some other facial products.
Yeah.
Which in a small Sicilian town, we didn't have Shoppers Drug Mart, but it worked out.
Yeah, it was good. This is actually the Sicilian National Bank that was being renovated.
Yeah.
And that's the vault.
And we're actually also quoting a phase of synthetic cubism here. And this is one of my favorite anecdotes about the difference between Europe and, say, North America. There were two security guards with machine guns, because we're actually right next to the National Bank. And both of them actually discussed a period between Braque and Picasso in synthetic cubism. Does anyone see the anomaly there? I've never heard a security guard in Canada even grasp a period of early 20th century art.
I know. We've got artists on their money. This is a cenotaph. This was done in, I guess, 86, 87, this at the beginning of the AIDS crisis, major homophobic violence happening in Ontario. This is Massage for Harvey Milk,
Kenneth Zeller,
Harvey Milk, and an anonym. So we took mattresses, box spring mattresses.
You missed the number third person.
Anonym. Ralph Fredsberg.
Ralph Fredsberg, yeah.
That was
so the idea here was to start off with a figure that everyone would know from, North American politics, and then move downwards to a guy that you wouldn't know about who was just beaten to death in your local park, 2 years before.
Yeah.
And then we proposed this as a cenotaph so that there would be different, because we come from Ottawa and there's a lot of war memorial infrastructure.
Yeah,
we were proposing a kind of provisional infrastructure for different types of violence, like domestic violence, sexual orientation violence, and so forth.
So beds became...
Didn't go over very well,
a good ground for that. Yeah, I think the iconography was a little bit arch, but we were pretty...
It was a proposition.
It was a proposition.
Now here we're in interestingly, this factory floor was the last place where a television set was actually assembled in Canada.
General Electric Building. Lansdowne and DuPont, Toronto, and we colonized this. This was a filled office space. We did a large group show, and of course there wasn't really much electricity, so we made our own chandelier. So that's a candle chandelier, and we did a mock-up of a still. That's the.
And again, we're using the rules that everything that we made, the work, had to come from the materials we found in the space. So all the plywood came from the shelving. The paintings we constructed came from the wood. The paint comes from local stores. So this beehive is painted in, what was that stuff
No, that's
called?
Vaseline and curry.
It's curry powder.
Yeah. Anyways, we should.
It smelled really nice.
Okay, keep rolling. We gotta get through this. Okay, these are very much like tarot cards. They're 5 feet by 7 feet. Stressed plywood, and we've done mixed media and epoxy
And they all
resins.
concern different biological and geological interests that are completely conflated with cultural interests.
Lots
So
of
we might
locations,
have, we might have a little diatribe on reverse polarity in the Earth's magnetic field connected to something to do with racist philosophy. So this is in Montreal.
Yeah.
Here we've done a translation project and also an electromagnetic project. So we've translated most of our text into syllabic Cree. This, of course, is a nice play. In Montreal at the time, there was some tension over translation issues. So we raised the obvious gambit of like, well, who's going to translate the Cree back into English and/or French? We didn't get any volunteers on that one. And this is another iteration of the same piece. So the syllabics on the right have a sort of a bit of a philosophical concept to it, which is this is the literal translation for a conservation officer or an agent of the Crown in control of fur-bearing animals, which translates literally to beaver boss.
Yeah.
So the point we were positioning here is like, well, who actually is the boss of beavers? And this is in Japan, where, so here's another connection to beavers. For this particular exhibition, which was a garden exhibition and another cultural exhibition tied together, the Ontario government had proposed that they were going to have 6 beavers in this pond, and they died of some kind of bacterial infection on their way over.
This is a landfill. In the water, there was a mock-up of Niagara Falls that on the right
there's a
that they would turn on
model.
every day, so the water would go from ankle deep, to thigh deep.
But somebody made the connection that they needed a quick replacement for 6 beavers, and we were available. So we had a tree that had been, we had a work of art that had been chewed by a beaver, so there's the connection.
We were approximating.
Yeah.
So this is a passive lightning rod. It's just a lightning conductor. We have a Faraday cage in one place, and the passive electricity and/or lightning would goes through the wire, through her belly button, to the pole, to the Faraday cage, which is over on the shoreline. Actually, this particular pavilion was called Big Nature, and it was like a Japanese version of a log cabin. It was quite odd.
And it all connects to the belly button of the figure here, the mythological figure, because there's a standard story to scare children in Japan about lightning stealing your belly button. It doesn't translate that well.
We can just go over
this is in a library.
Oakville Galleries.
We were doing projects about irredeemable animals. So this is about leeches. And we did a 2-month project where we would hang out in swamps in wetsuits collecting leeches.
Yeah.
That didn't go over too well either.
on either side of the coin.
Some animals are irredeemable, even aesthetically.
They have nice lips. We figured that. Yeah. Very nice lips.
Some interesting patterns.
This is a temporary public art project next to the Sky Dome in a park that's built on a railway bridge. So it's all steel girders with styrofoam and then soil and grass. And we put this birch hive piece, or we designed it for this particular location. It stood there for 2 years, and it has an ELF, or an extremely low frequency generator inside.
We chose this location because of the subversive potential of it actually functioning as a giant antenna, because the steel girders for this connect to the Sky Dome. So we were using the ambient properties of all the steel in the Sky Dome and this particular location. And we collaborated with a radio astronomer,
Bob Stevens,
to get the tuning on this. So that's the
interior. Like a lot of our work has the sort of
it's
the peekaboo.
A peep show effect where you look in.
You see the root ball of the white pine that's at the top, and that's the copper antenna that's going in circles around. This is the same birch hive. This birch hive came from the still that you saw in the previous exhibition. So we cut it in pieces, and then we refurbished it with birch bark, and then outfitted it with the ELF. There's the ELF generator there. It looks like a stereo cabinet. It's pretty kind of corny, but it was putting out a nice big square wave.
The politics of these extremely large waves are that the United States Navy at the time, and they still do, they have a large loop of wire, essentially, around Lake Michigan. And they use that to communicate with submarines that are deep underwater in the middle of the Pacific. So we were using a carrier wave, which is basically the same thing as saying, every strike of lightning on this planet creates a wave that bounces up to the ionosphere. We used that as the cover for our signal, but the idea was to encroach upon the signal of the US Navy and see how long it would take for them to notice that it wasn't an entirely natural signal. And we reckon it took 2 years.
Yeah.
Because that's when we were suddenly asked to take it down and paid a bonus to do it very quickly.
We had to do it in 3 days.
So that fits into conspiracy theory thought right
very nice.
there.
And this is the black light etching edition that we did to as a kind of a sideline. So
Yeah.
it's glow-in-the-dark paper with etching. There's an edition.
Again, we were commissioned to do this by
Open Studio.
Open Studio, a printmaking cooperative, essentially. And again, we used the rules-based thing of local materials. And at that time, day-glow shorts and sportswear was very popular in Spadina, where they were still making some clothing. So this is all taken from scraps of clothing we would find in garbage bags, and then we made the paper.
Made the paper out of it.
And the glow-in-the-dark principles, that made us think, oh, well, we can make the whole project, you know, black light.
And this is another black light installation called Honky Town, and this was in a very an artist collective gallery called the Purple Institution.
So we painted all these paintings only at night using ultraviolet lights, which proved to be damaging to our daytime perception.
The wishing well is actually a bass speaker. It's a large drum speaker that's pointing downwards, and it actually vibrates the wishing well. And there's a
It's a 32-inch bass speaker mounted into the bottom, so the whole thing sort of shimmies around through the vibration.
And there was a Honky Town soundtrack that went with it, yeah. Anyway, we should keep going. These are the panels. This is Les Songeurs d'Art Contemporain with Claude Gosselin and the crew in Montreal. And this was it was a show about ecology. It was like a big think tank for scientists, and we had to do a lot of questionnaires about how we would save the world and so forth before we. And it was a great group show. It had a lot of First Nations people, which was kind of great. Finally, for 1990. It actually opened at the same time that the Oka crisis was happening, so it was pretty highly charged.
So apparently, our piece was going to be controversial until that took over the headlines, because we were lampooning Quebec Hydro and its relationship to aluminum production and so forth. And we had another proposition, which is we said to the organizers that we wouldn't participate in any of these other conferences unless they could prove to us they could keep an office plant alive for 6 months. So you can guess that they didn't manage to do that, right? Because it's too tricky keeping an office plant alive.
So that's the Quebec Hydro logo. And the interior, again, was a blacklight installation. We used the same panels from the Purple Institution. Only, again, we're back to the stars again. We've got the northern hemisphere at that time of year. We've reconfigured the stars to form La Mafoute Major, which is a major skunk major, with the Milky Way being pushed out of its butt, the back. So we were, a little bit aggressive. We took an oil barrel and turned it into a chandelier. It was a lot about symbols and trying to resurrect and sort of reclaim symbols. And at that time, we were pretty busy with the Aryan symbol and the Sanskrit symbol of the swastika. But as it is originally configured, which is the Big Dipper moving around the North Star. So if you look at that, you're seeing the Big Dipper constellation, and the North Star is where the cauldron is, which is full of salt. So we're trying to actually purify it, in a very straightforward way.
And there's text on the piece on the left in Sanskrit translated back and forth.
But that was a failed.
Bit difficult to explain in a hurry, but this is easy to explain because this is in Madrid.
Oh yes, it's so easy. This is a shipping container. It's Madrid. It's a group show, and it was during the quincentenary year and a quincentenary celebration of the discovery of America. And so we're in Spain, where there's no irony about it. It's a celebration. It's a
so
big celebration.
They asked us to pick a site, and they wanted us to pair us off with an early a left-wing cafe, but we chose this abandoned lot next to Franco's favorite basilica. So we're in a fascist neighborhood essentially, but we're in this no man's land space where you can dump things temporarily, so we basically had illegal electricity coming to this container. And we decorated at that time they had a campaign about Say Sí to Spain, which was a tourism campain.
Sort of a Miro-esque kind of,
yeah, so we're using
logo.
the pattern of a poison arrow frog combined with a sort of Miro modernism. And we'll show you, the pairing of this is in London, England, where we'll show you
this
the
is the
interior.
Bengali neighborhood, which is now like Brick Lane, which is now quite, poncy. But in 1992, it was pretty much a straight up working class Bengali neighborhood, period. And this was a little farm that was next to the railway
Except,
tracks.
again, translating everything into Bengali didn't go over well with the English organizers. And also, they had this presumption that the Bengali residents were interested in, what do you call it? So the British affliction of like cuteness to do with animals and so on. But they're more of an entrepreneur class, and they see farming as something for peasants, so there's class issues built into this. And in the center, we have in
the interior, there's a blacklight installation. The iconography in the back is North and South America on its side. And then that's, the classic, open heart, bleeding heart, sacrificial, in our case, we're using the dissected frog because we see the...
Well, we're going back again to a shared experience of our high school education where dissecting a frog is an important sort of step.
It's a kind of an initiation of sorts.
However, there was a lot of, at that time, we linked this to a paper that was showing that these kind of experiences had nothing to do with science. It was more about power dynamics relative to humans in the natural world. That would be the minimum description.
Because no one really has a memory of the anatomy of a frog, but they understand the experience to be you're allowed to penetrate, you're allowed to,
I know what I'd say. Here's a good reduction for that.
Okay.
This is sort of trying to explain instrumental reason in its most sort of simplistic metaphors,
And that's,
this is after being in Paris for a couple of months where we were studying museology or display techniques, so we created a whole display around this. And this at the same time, we had just got an inkling that probably North America would ban smoking indoors, so we purchased a smoking urn.
A sand urn is what they call them, The
and
last
then,
of the sand urns.
We had this sort of notion of repressed desire in the future where we would show these different kind of campfires, so the idea of fire, and then have an urn for cigarette smoking, but of course you wouldn't be able to smoke, so it'd have these conflicts built into it.
So these are three. There's a teepee fire, the log cabin fire, and the star fire with hardwood and birch bark and cedar. And there's all museum numbering on them, so they can be reconfigured.
Again, this comes from early childhood instruction in sort of Boy Scout ideology.
You can keep going on these.
Whoa, how do you explain that?
You don't.
Those are candies we purchased at the airport in Japan, because apparently in Japan they have no problems with young children sucking on candy, cocks, and
labias,
pussy, etc.
Okay.
And we thought, yeah, that's good.
Crew portrait. This is a crew portrait. We
built a photo studio based on 1950s technology, and then we built wardrobe, and we learned how to do makeup. And
the Parkdale Library served us well.
We learned it all from
learned
the
how
library.
to cut hair from that too. Yeah.
And then we created the characters for our version of Star Trek, because there's so many spin-offs on Star Trek. And this was proposed for the
Koffler Center Gallery,
which is in North York, and we were struck by the fact that they were the last gallery to have wall-to-wall carpet, and we related that to Star Trek, because in Star Trek they always have wall-to-wall carpet and office plants often in the corners near elevators.
They had curved walls too. It was actually pretty,
curved walls.
Looked like the bridge. So this is our crew, and
so there you see the carpet in the gallery, and we have office plants again. And we've designed our chairs so they're all soft chairs. One of our critiques of Star Trek is they always thrash around and hit hard Danish-style furniture when they're having problems. It'd be much better if it was just, bean bags and soft things. And we've also extended the kind of liberal ideology of Star Trek in the sense that we've now privileged animals as part of the command structure. So we have 2 bags for cats in the front, and they actually are the primary
They're navigators. They
primary
have, they have
navigators
cat toys, and when
and
they hit the cat
controllers.
toys, whatever.
Yeah.
It's
So we put together also a multiracial crew based on our friends who are artists. So this is Jin Han Ko. He's one of the members of
instant coffee, and he's a squeegee officer.
And we
We're security and horticulture with us and the cat.
He just cleans windows all day. This
Cargo
is the
bay,
loading,
yeah.
the
Cargo
other
bay.
side is the loading bay. Now at the Koffler, there was a little bit of controversy about our work. So a rabbi came to see us. So our compromise was, we said, oh no, there's not going to be any controversy. The stars in our galaxy are going to be,
All stars of David.
yeah.
It was okay.
We'll avoid the 5-pointed star. So there you go. See, we can accommodate any kind of difference.
And then more blacklight paintings, obviously. We should keep rolling because this is kind of, okay, this is Center for the Fine Arts in Miami. We're there for 6 weeks. No, actually, it was only 3 weeks. It's an 18-foot snowman, tar snowman. So we welded rebar and bought, melted tar and made this piece for the, it's a Philip Johnson building, actually. It's kind of a crazy sort of Spanish galleon prison kind of architecture. And yeah, there it is. And we also grew 100 ears of black corn in the planters and painted an eclipse. So it was about snowbirds, it's about the sort of reversal, that kind of, you can get it, it's pretty straight up.
And to get the corn, we flew to Mexico City and we negotiated in the witches market for a particular kind of black corn that you only get from a certain area. And then it was used in a food piece by...
Anthony Moralda, I think a Spanish artist who does like food feast. We donated it to him. We should keep, anyways, hockey witchcraft. Okay.
This is our second most popular religion, which is hockey.
Yes.
So here we've just conflated it. This is a classic penetration move that you use in witch hockey.
Yes.
Notice the overstressing of the blue line on the left there.
Public art, woodpecker column, Metro Toronto Convention Center, about 100 feet high and a 3-degree angle, a 17-foot pileated woodpecker and a yellow-bellied sapsucker, stained glass, snowmen. Actually, the snowmen now are bronze, which is very cool. And it's still there. It's
This all came from an article we read about NASA hiring 3 ornithologists because they were having problems in Florida with the space shuttle with flickers naturally seek out the tallest thing that has a certain kind of echo to send out their
sounding.
Their sounding, so they were basically destroying the insulation on the space shuttle. They hadn't thought about that. They were invading the territory of flickers.
And that's just constructions. We like to show slides that, that show that we actually make stuff. And we're always kind of amazed too, because our bodies have forgotten
material-based culture with the pickup truck. We're driving to, Toronto houses a lot of illegal fiberglass shops. It's great for all kinds of pirate activities.
But we learned to do it ourselves, so we're just put the air supply masks on and go for it. And that's
this is at the actual site where the woodpecker is landing on the column that we've built.
This is us glazing all the windows.
We're installing stained glass in this industrial.
So all the aperture holes are all stained glass, and they approximate the holes that a yellow-bellied sapsucker would make if it was making
Yeah,
holes
because
in
we're
a tree.
working off a pileated or pileated and the sapsucker as the 2 models. And that's what it looks like at night, and that's the CN Tower on the right.
We figure it's the most expensive piece of folk art in existence.
Yeah. It appalled the architect.
Oh yeah. Architects don't like us.
Yeah. And this is the bronze snowman arriving.
And terrazzo floor, we had
Oh yeah, we did a serious terrazzo
7,500
floor.
square feet of terrazzo floor based on frog eggs and tadpoles and
We saw an
pentagrams.
opportunity that the last generation of the master craftsmen of terrazzo were about to retire. So we got together the team of the last guys, because basically you do this kind of work, your knees are shot.
Well, you're hand bending all of the
the outline wire,
outline wires,
especially
yeah.
mixing
The
the mortar
expansion
and the
wires.
pigments and the...
And then sanding and sanding and sanding to get it. It's pretty brutal.
So here we've got a version of the
It's a pond. Oh, this is
raven
green turtle.
leaving with the stick.
Oh, right,
yeah.
the Christian, yeah.
Yeah, Old
There's
Testament.
There's other little narratives
There's some
built
Old
into the
Testament
floor.
mixed in with biology.
Well, the nice part is you're on a tall elevator coming down, so you get to actually see the entirety, and then you get to have the close-up kind of.
So this is Toronto, and the topical event here was this was the summer where there was a great deal of controversy about whether women were allowed to be topless or not, and it went through the legal process, but it was endless speculation in
This
the
summer of
Toronto
the breast that we
newspapers.
did a nice. This is the power plant. This is the Anacauda. It's called Anacauda. Happy to save the world. Yeah.
Yes, and this is a continuation of, we run virtual corporations as part of our practice, and we were talking before about redeeming irredeemable animals. So we gave up on leeches, but snakes, we had still tried maybe 5 different projects, and people don't really like snakes, we learned this. But we invented a snake called Anacauda, which is a snake that has a lot of nipples that can replace an entire herd of cattle.
It's crossed with a dairy cow. Yeah.
And you can have different kinds of milk and lactose products produced by this. So it fits in with instrumental reasoning, but we figured no one can say no to breasts and nipples based on, the kind of attraction our culture has with it. Again, no one really bought into it, though.
Here we go.
You can't save snakes, apparently.
Okay, Hawk 33. This is the Mississauga Arts Center, and this was we had that kind of rotunda. Inside is the council chambers, the mayoralty council chambers in Mississauga, and so we had the walls to work on, and we decided to use raptors and bird outlines.
We have this, but we also have. There's a version of the Canadian flag and a version of the American flag, because essentially the treaties to deal with migratory birds were the first in North America, were the first international treaties of their kind, because it was obviously recognized that you can't control, birds don't recognize these boundaries, political boundaries. So that was one aspect of the project. And then the other aspect of this project is survey work that we were doing at the time based on different types of surveys.
So we would travel around to different artist-run centers, Regina, Saskatoon, we did one, where we would pick a topic and then go out and survey, dressed as witches, in classic witch attire, and approach people and ask them particular questions about the occult. We'd have, particular themes involved, and then we would compile all of the data afterwards. In this case, we wanted to do a bioethics survey, and a little bit because when we were in the U.S., years ago, when we were first doing our car trips and doing rock mining in Arkansas, we used to really love the wild turkey, and we also loved wild turkey, the drink. Well, at one point, Canada, they started to, they had a project to repatriate the turkeys, and they were doing a conservation program where if you bought wild turkey bourbon, they took $1 of that and they put it towards conservation. So, I mean,
and they traded
yeah.
X amount of turkeys for moose that would go to upper state Michigan.
Yes, right. So there was an exchange that happened. So now we're living in the country. It's been 16 years, literally, 3 years
We're
into...
overrun with turkeys.
We have turkeys.
Now.
We have
They're everywhere.
Just turkeys. We look out our window and there's turkeys jumping up in the air and picking seeds off of the lilacs.
But this project is also based on Ducks Unlimited.
A lot on ducks.
Which we originally thought was a disagreeable organization, but then we noticed that they actually get things done. They actually recoup a lot of wetland because they're into the nuts and bolts of, I guess they need more wetland to be able to shoot more ducks.
So what's the
So it's that ethical problem there. We found that most people in the arts wouldn't agree to any form of advertising, no matter how much it helped habitat.
Yeah.
We're not sure what that means.
I think it's a hard sell when you put the Nike swoosh on a vulture, but there was a little bit of humor in that as well. And this is us doing the survey work. This is a coven of stars on the American flag. A little bit of obviously a quote to and a nod to David Hammond's, of course, right?
There was also the point where there were only 13 states
well, yeah,
in the
13
Union.
states, but we like it there. Another
this
spaceship,
is Montreal.
Montreal again.
There's no way you can explain this.
No, it's another spaceship. We just decided to decorate our spaceship the way we liked it. It's called Coven 11.
With modernist works, and also quotes from the French Revolution in the iconography.
Yes, actually, the birch curls. I know, there's not many close-ups. Sorry about that. If you have questions, you can maybe ask. I'm just worried that we're not going to.
So this is another iteration. Again, we're working on the modernist motif here. But this, we're gathering the materials just from signage in a 10-mile radius of where we live now. In the country, a lot of signs will just stay up whether they're relevant or not. So you'll see actual signs of children going to school and they're carrying, they almost have a cart, a buggy with a horse, and they're carrying like, yeah.
Leather book bags.
Leather book bags. When we first were thinking of being hired at the University of Guelph, they asked us to do a project based on what we considered the most
research community that existed there. Right?
Well, we positioned it as what's the biggest scientific cliche of the 20th century. So we were vying between DNA representations and/or computer representations, and we went with DNA. So this is our helix in the center, which we built with abandoned lab armature materials.
The peekaboo, the exterior has the nucleic proteins, they're
we always come back to the peep show in terms of our public art.
And then stained glass, helix. A little bit about where,
and
about
we've
creative
invented
thinking.
heraldic genetically modified animals to go along
Monsters.
with different molecule constructions. Because we basically told Guelph we were interested in working there because they're basically a science museum, and we said, which they thought was ironic, that we want to be where the monsters are being made. But we're quite literal about that. Blood and Swash by Captain X. This is a kind of storefront project that we ran with Andrew Harwood and various collaborators. So how to explain this? So here's a fountain we have that's constructed with a mug that we bought from a biker who was having to give up on his tit mug because he was getting married. And
it's now a fountain, and it's a fountain that purifies money. So we have lots of lucky horseshoes, and people bring money to be washed. So it's a lucky money washing fountain. And this is a felt-tip tattoo parlor. It was open for a week. It was like a drop-in community center, and when people came in, we would do felt-tip marker tattoos on them. And we did this performance in many places, in New York City a few times, Brooklyn,
and another opportunity is we got all this WWF fabric because they just lost their lawsuit with the World Wildlife Federation.
So there we go.
That's us in operation there.
Oh, and this is the House of Bangs. This is same location, storefront, House of Bangs. We decided to cut hair. So we cut hair.
We learned from a VHS tape from our rural library.
Well, that was from, yeah. Oh, yeah, the rural.
So we learned how to do nails, hair, and what else did we do?
It must be nail and hair.
So we would,
and
this was
hair extensions.
Yeah, these were endurance-based products. So we would cut hair for 36 hours straight. So at night we would only cut by candlelight too, which was another challenge.
That's Philip Monk he's getting hair extensions. He didn't want a haircut.
Yeah. This is at the CAG. This project is based, we were in Canadian Tire and we noticed they had these kind of lame, sort of hip-hop gangster decals for putting bullets on your cars, bullet holes on your cars. And we wanted to expand it for our Pirate Head project. We thought, would anyone recognize cannon holes? Because it would be perfect for a gallery, a modernist style gallery.
So we did a collaborative ink drawings of the entry hole and the exit hole, because we thought they'd be very different, like the impact. So
there's a drive-by shooting on the CAG right there.
Yeah, drive-by shooting, contemporary art gallery in Vancouver.
Which is also a play on a piece done by Jeffrey Farmer, commenting on the film industry and its importance in Vancouver.
In the interior with our smoking cannon.
There's our cannon, made out of some sewage pipe we found on the side of the road. This
is a touring exhibition, Donkey Ninja Witch, and it came out of a residency that we did at the Art Gallery of York University. And it's pretty labor intensive, and it's a recreation of a lot of these storefront exhibitions, these sort of social exchange exhibitions that we were doing. And it went to 3 places. It did Plug-in Gallery, the Contemporary Art Gallery, and of course the EGYU.
That's one of the, there's some serious institutional string art there.
Yeah.
We were exposed to string art when we were children also. So you see what happens when you contaminate children with these activities. Come back to haunt you.
In the House of Bangs, we had mirrors that people could line up with their face to sort of figure out what kind of hairdo they wanted. So we did,
The
well,
1
actually.
foot by 1 foot glass mirror
Yeah.
module is a really, you can get that in any city in North America. So we can just create new hairstyles wherever we go using black marker.
And what we're also using is a lot of white pegboard. We're using that kind of crappy pegboard that you can't use for anything. People have them in their tool shops with black outlines, but the tools never end up going back there. So we, repurposed a lot of this. In fact, we have a barn full of white pegboard now.
Because pegboard kind of, again, perfectly explains the modernist desire for the unit of order that can replicate all necessities. And then, of course, it ends up being a piece of masonite junk.
And this is, the CAG. This is the CAG version. So each version was very different. Like some of the pieces were
And
similar.
video projects are integrated into these in different rooms and so forth.
And a lot of witch iconography, obviously.
IKEA mirrors.
The full moon mirrors, because the whole duration of the show, we usually did the mirrors, all the moon phases around the top of the wall to correspond with how long the show was.
Giveaway posters.
I'll always give away posters, yes.
This project
yeah.
here is made with X number of bras from Honest Ed that were made in Romania.
Bra web and a gusset web, a panty web. And that's
So
a neural
that
net.
represents one of the failures of state-run industry, because these bras were literally unwearable. They would just hurt you.
And that's the endless panty column, and that's made out of giant underpants that are sewn, opened up and sewn in interior to.
And on the left is a painting about neural nets and what the cutoff point is for neural connections. Like, how many neural connections do you need to achieve, say, consciousness in a nervous system?
So there's a sculpture made out of pipe cleaners that demonstrates that.
And here's one of those
Anything's
film rooms,
possible.
the video rooms we were talking
Oh,
about.
this is called blood clock. And this
So
is,
on one side, we've collected at auctions axes and size on one side, and the other side, we've collected horseshoes and dildos. The dildos come from Toronto.
with the mediating point being the
We
alternate
haven't seen
between-
any of those at a farm auction yet.
Maybe our farm auction
Yeah,
will.
we don't know. We've got a lot of them now. Of course, they're in a barn being chewed on by raccoons.
Yeah, exactly. Being curated currently.
Yeah.
And this
Currently
is
under revision.
this is usually the next day after we've been cutting hair. We'll leave the hair. We'll compile. We've got, the hair stays on the
Winnipeg,
ground.
they're a very intense party crowd there.
Martinis are
Yeah,
not
they
a
don't,
good idea at an opening.
They
There
don't
were-
start with a couple of beers. They start with the martinis.
There was a lot of shaving going
So
on.
after 1 hour, this is the kind. This guy's gotten a chest massage, had half of his hair cut off, and he's happy.
He's really no. It was great.
It was good, yeah.
Oh, that's Talon.
So we're going to intersperse some cat portraits now, because these were used in a project in the subway system in Toronto.
Oh, and
But
also-
we're just going to jump
and at
around
the power
now.
plant. We were in the adaptation show. Back to the tats. That's what the tattoos look
Someone
like.
got 2 tattoos. So basically, people request what they want as a tattoo, and we try and do it.
Keep going.
This is a volcano dragon.
A request.
We learned that when people get drunk, they often want to show off parts of their body while they're getting tattooed. This is in New York City. This is
Leo Koenig Projects. It's a show called Ridiculous.
This person wanted a Murakami unicorn. I don't know if people know the story we're referencing here.
He's nominated for a Nobel Prize.
Yeah.
I'm doing card readings.
Kim was also doing card
We
readings
do
for
tarot
people.
readings. We've done tarot performances where we've trained people to read tarot. We did a Nuit Blanche with tarot readers and did 800 people in one night, which was
And our
crazy.
tablecloth and a lot of our stuff is our version of acid wash, because we were exposed to that as a fashion crime at one point.
Okay,
We've
you
never
better
gotten over it.
Better go quickly. Narwhals, yeah. Keep going. Quickly, deep les. Oh,
That's touching.
that is really touching.
But that's really touching.
That's more touching. The three-way gone wrong. Yeah.
So I should mention that all our cats are barn cats that basically arrived at our place, and these are 3 brothers, the orange guys. That's the third brother there.
He's tetched, a little tetched.
But he's blessed, because you
He's
can
blessed.
tell he's under
Yeah,
that
he
rainbow.
brings luck, yeah.
During Obama's inauguration, our cats celebrated on their new cat tree.
Okay, you should go through here. This is Ireland, go.
In Ireland, we also introduced the cat tree there. And we started a Facebook site to link up different cat groups.
Yeah,
And then we've got this new product, the cat cabin at the bottom there.
keep on going.
Ah, a painting show. People were asking us about what our position was on painting, because most installation artists don't think kindly towards paintings because it's, I don't know, a commodity.
But paintings are really good to look at when you're working out. So we made paintings for working out too. They're oil paintings.
They're all based on one of our favorite paintings, Eyes in the Storm by Jackson Pollock, that's in the
Peggy Guggenheim
collection in Venice.
Keep going, gotta actually got them. Oh, and the pegboard, of course, we've got
Yes,
the pegboard.
more pegboard.
Lucky pegboard.
These are what some of the paintings look like. These are oil paintings. So I should mention
That's baby tight eyes,
we
that
do,
one.
yeah. We actually do a lot of painting, but we do it for our own entertainment. We don't usually exhibit them.
Oh, it's a lot.
And then this was our favorite painting in that series. So then the real thing is to make a Kleenex box that has the painting motif on it. That's the real work of art. So this is what we sold for $60.
Yeah, we sold one of those.
One. That's all we have to do.
No, we also sold the Cauldron pegboard.
Yes.
Because luck sells, we found out. Good to have luck. And that's more of the ongoing pegboard series that we do. A little more discreet than full walls. Ban-he, ban-she, toads eat for free, like that kind of.
We invented the dildo ninja.
And the K-bells, yeah. Okay, keep.
Back to the cats during the inauguration, which was a live event for them. Afterwards, they'd seen achievement of a liberal milestone they celebrated. They're a little let down now. You can see by now we're 4 years into Obama's first term. They're not quite as pleased anymore. Showing some signs of distress now. This is a project. Kim has always had a dream when she was a young girl that she wanted a work of art in the Albright Knox. So we had an opportunity to pitch this proposal for them of an owl that would go on their roof to keep pigeons away.
So it's 11 feet high, fiberglass, and it has railway crossing LED lights. And there it is. It's in a nice gunmetal. That's transcendent.
We told them that only Goth sculpture could ultimately keep pigeons of the future away.
And this was before it got actually installed on the roof. So it's quite large. That's in the courtyard there. More passive. Okay.
This is our proposal drawing, just to show off our graphic skill.
This is like our gag. Oh yeah. That could be anything, right?
That's us grabbing
a
a screenshot off of someone's
Keep going down.
tourist
Running out
photo
of
of the
time.
entrance lab.
Okay. Super.
This is one of our wilder cats. She only shows up every 4 or 5 years. This is an exhibition also in
We should
Toronto.
probably end on this one, right? Or yeah,
Yeah,
we're pretty
Free
close
Pussy
to
Riot.
the ends. We're pretty close. Yeah.
So you get the political
This
message
was just
there.
last year. We decided to do a catnip grow-up in the gallery. This is Paul Petro. So there's our grow-up tent. It has 3 different varieties of catnip that we started off in the country, and we've moved. We've got.
Yeah, so the rules-based limitation here is everything has to be able to be ordered via the internet. So everything in this exhibition came from the internet.
Well, in this, the central part came from the internet.
Well,
So
yeah.
there's a cloning machine. We're cloning the catnip. We've got a drying racks. We've got another cat column in the corner. The pegboard now is steel steel.
We found
Yeah.
stainless steel
Yeah.
pegboard.
And there's more cat portraits. Okay, back to the, yeah. The LED lights were beautiful. They really have quite a wonderful spectrum.
And again, everything we learned about growing, we learned from the internet, from different sites for medical marijuana and so forth, and we just translated it to catnip, which was part of the pharmacopoeia that arrived here
Yeah.
with Europeans.
And the floor says BAST, B-A-S-T.
And these portraits here are based on a science fiction story that goes along with the exhibition that deals
yeah.
with interdimensional beings.
It's by Cordwainer Smith, who's a very
Yeah.
well-known science fiction writer. That's Dragon Wagon, Talon. And these cats perform, what we do is we set up the cat tree, and I just use an iPad with the stereographic function, so there's no after effects done.
We don't ever
Basically,
use Photoshop
these
in
are
any of our
performed.
work.
We don't
Yeah.
do any Photoshop, so these are performed. Some of them are a little more abstracted, and we're kind of conflating, Free Pussy Riot with lost cat posters, because wherever we travel, we're always photographing free cats, lost cats. And this is our bronze cat litter box. And it's, the cat turds are bronze, and they're in a matrix of, what are those called? They're meteorites.
Tourmaline.
Tourmalines, black tourmalines
meteorites.
and meteorites. So it's very
So I should
quite
explain
lovely.
what this is. We have the security camera. We have a toilet plunger we purchased from Home Hardware. And then we have a motorcycle lift that we purchased from Princess Auto.
That we've customized.
And then we've cast a cat litter box out of bronze and polished it lovingly for months. And then we've cast cat turds on a bed of meteorites we ordered online.
We sold a toilet plunger. Again, we're just
Because
cutting
we
right through.
recognized that this could be a gay motif in the right neighborhood.
That's right. It's rather nice.
So here's some cat turds in our specially fetishized box. So here's a cat turd. We've made the cat turds out of wax. So we taught some grad students also. They weren't quite as good at it because you have to study.
We did a cat turd workshop where we had a stack this high, and we had to go through and do quality control. Yeah, it was pretty great.
We had to explain to them that you have to have been through at least 10 years of cat boxes in your life
You had to fool
really
a
understand.
cat is what you
yeah.
had to do. You actually had
Yeah.
to fool a cat with a cat turd. So these are the ones that won.
And then some of them became select jewelry for people who achieved the highest levels of cat mimicry, cat turd mimicry.
Whip through this.
This is a process of public art again, where
Yeah.
we semi-cynically proposed for a, what do you call it that?
It's a condominium.
A condominium, that's what they're called.
It's a 36-foot high unicorn horn with a frog. In
Yeah.
this case, it was just a straight up green frog. Somehow we won. This usually happens. So now we have to make it.
So this is how you make the world's largest unicorn horn.
Go through
We
these
start with
quickly, yeah.
cedar.
Keep going, guys. Actually, we're at a time. So.
This is where we live. Now we're covering it with foam. Now we're cooking up some wax. Now we're building a building to do the other part in, what do you call those, Quonset hut?
Quonset hut, yeah.
Yeah. Now we're cutting the foam with hot wires. Now we're roughing in the frog. Now we've got the eyeballs from IKEA, salad bowls. Perfect. Now we've got some of that low expansion foam from Home Hardware. It's working good. We're getting closer. Almost done. No, now we got to put wax on it. So this took a year to do.
And
Now we're putting the warts on the frog. This is a tree frog. This is Hyla versicolor, the gray
Yeah.
tree frog or Cope's tree frog, which actually we've been planting trees now for 16 years, and we have quite a few tree frogs that have shown up. Surprise. Here we're detailing the bronze cast version of it, which was cast maybe a month ago, and now we're just approaching the finishing deadline.
Yeah, it's going to be installed end of October, beginning of November. So it's all
It's happening
cast,
right now.
Happening now.
At the same time, the horn was being worked on, which was a lot more trouble than we thought. And this is what it looks like in bronze.
It hasn't been worked on yet. This is just really rough, right out of the mold, sand cast.
And we have tadpoles and frogs swimming with different types of currency in their mouth. This is just to show you what our place looks
where it
like in the
ended.
wintertime.
That's where that ended, Di.
We mainly do this because we were giving this slideshow in Latvia, and we want to let them know that it's not all sunshine.
Yeah. It was, well, you leave it right there. I think we're over. Oh, you
No,
had
there's
to end on
Spotty.
the cat. You had to end on Spotty.
And
Okay.
here's our Latvia presentation. Yes, free Pussy Riot.
Okay.
And this is the mayor of Reykjavik,
That's right.
which again, that's the difference in Europe.
Yeah.
Can anyone here imagine the mayor of Kingston? Dressed as Pussy
On a
Riot
float?
figure on a float?
Even standing on that is a feat in itself, you know.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll end with that. That's pretty much up to the present. We were in Riga, Latvia, doing that. I mean, not with him, but just in September. So that's up to the present. The frog and unicorn horn will be installed. We're working on something else now, and a show, and it's constantly happening. Not necessarily in bronze.
Would
So-
you like to move on to questions now? Because we've obviously gone over time trying to show
Like
30
way-
years of work
Yeah, we
in
did.
40
Yeah,
minutes.
and we left out lots. Yay. We saved some for tomorrow though for the class.
Yeah,
So
okay.
don't go thinking you're going to see the same thing again.
No, we got lots of
Oh,
stuff to
lots
show.
of stuff.
Well, thank you so much for the really engaging and thorough presentation. So we'd like to open it up to questions from the audience.
Oh, yeah, we do it over.
And we'd like to ask you to just raise your hand if you have a question. We're going to bring over a mic because we're recording this for posterity. So any questions for Fastwurms?
The background here is our political manifesto from 2007.
Yes. Oh, thanks.
It's probably not readable, is it?
Oh, you can read it.
Depends on your age group and how good your...
You can't read it because you don't wear glasses.
I
You
can
should.
read
You
that.
should. Can you read?
Sure. Witchcraft is an old resistance and liberation theology, an ancient cultural nation that shares with the modern hip-hop nation a creative can't stop, won't stop compulsion to exceed boundaries and limitations, to move beyond the narrow constraints of nation, race, etc., towards the diverse, plural, and hybrid, the bountiful and beautiful, polymorphous and polycultural Avalon. The Witch National Anthem is a song about individual freedom and the price of universal liberty. Do what you will, harm unto none. In witch culture, personal freedom is a participation and positivity economy. Enhance the liberty of others and you prosper. Constrain free will and you suffer. In the witch world, others are understood to include all peoples, animals, plants, the vast web of life, the universe. What have you done for your donkey today? Donkey is a slang word that we use. What was the definition for it? The lowest level of unrewarded labor.
Yeah.
So that would be cleaning the toilet, that kind of stuff.
You cheated. You read from the screen. I thought you were going to read up there.
I can read from that too.
I know you can.
Is it a test?
No.
Any questions from the audience?
We will endeavor to respond.
You will receive a free microphone.
It's very nice. I was interested just in probing a little bit your comment. I think you said about the unicorn horn and the frog sculpture you're making for a condominium. That your proposal was kind of a semi-cynical. Is that?
Oh no, we've always wanted to make a unicorn horn, oh yeah, no, that's not cynical. Cynical only in that public art is a really strange
no,
beast,
I can
right?
explain.
No, I guess I'm just my question is.
No, it's because we have to go to a lot of meetings with people, and at this one particular meeting, they were asking us, well, is this lasting? Will it have any value? And we were basically saying, usually we're talking to people that have never bothered to take an art history course or anything in their life. So we were explaining to them that because it's cast in bronze, it will outlast the building by quite a bit. And then we were explaining to them about this culture called the Greeks and how we have a lot of their sculptures, but not a lot of their houses or infrastructure available to look at because of this exact problem.
Well, the cynical part would maybe the fact that you have to build in all sorts of narrative structures into public art because you're not supposed to trust that people can actually see that there could be a connection between a frog looking up at a 36-foot-high unicorn horn. So we had to build in sort of little clues and narrative bits and pieces, i.e. like the little tadpoles and the coins. But we don't mind that. We don't mind kind of taking it to that extreme. I mean, that's fine. It wasn't really where we would have gone. Yeah, you know, it felt good doing it. I enjoyed doing it. So, and it
We're
remains to be
selling
seen how great it
paganism
looks.
to aliens.
We're
That's
selling-
how
yeah,
we describe
but
it.
kind of, you know. But it's good luck. It's good for sex. It's good for money. It's good for flow. I mean, I think people in that building will probably, you know, enjoy it.
They'll benefit from it.
I think
Yes,
so.
Yeah.
we're hoping they'll work that exactly into their advertising campaign. That if you have a unit in this particular condominium, you will have much more. Your libidinal economy would just be out of control.
Yeah. Or in control.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, it would be severely in control. There'll be 10,000 shades of gray and blue and black. You'll occupy a section of the rainbow that's exclusively dark.
I don't think I'm going to use this. Oh, it works, I guess.
It does.
Your art is protean and prolific. Where do you get your ideas? Do you hit off one another? Do you troll? What areas to come
I
up with
can
these
tell you
ideas?
exactly. We use, basically we use algorithms.
At this stage, I just knew.
Basically we use, actually we have an explanation
We
for
do,
that. We
but
use
yeah.
evolutionary algorithms. So we have lots and lots of ideas, and then they're run in a constant competition to see which of them become actualized.
Yeah, okay,
And
that
that's what we do. We both run separate portfolios and we pitch them against each other, and then there might be an incremental improvement, and that goes into another set of competitions.
And sometimes they just become a running joke that comes up, you know, and we're together all the time. I mean, we actually are a professor. We're not two professors. We share the position. You know, it's kind of, we're 51% each. So we're a little bit unusual in that we're together pretty much all the time. So so the language is easy. You know, the crossovers.
Yeah, we run a
the
constant discourse about anything that we're proposing in that.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit different than the usual kind of subjectivity of an individual
The
artist.
thought experiment is ongoing, so to speak. It's yeah.
And the kind of proliferation that you're talking about, it comes naturally out of this kind of, well, out of evolution itself as a form of profusion, right? That then gets tested. Does that make sense? Yeah, of course, it's easy.
Yeah.
Any final questions?
It's common now for artists to use really kind of low popular cultural motifs and stuff, and I thought you guys had reached a really kind of nicely low moment when you started using cat photos. And then you took it a step further and used cat turds, which was,
Yeah.
I don't know if you can get further down than that. So there's this
Yeah.
kind of transformative energy you have for just the detritus, disposable ideas and so on. And it's a lot of artists work that way, but I wondered if you could comment on maybe why. Or
Well,
in what.
I should say
That's
that
what
we
feels-
come
yeah.
from pretty low. We're white trash at the sort of the, we're bog Irish. You know what that term means? I guess you'd have to understand some of the distinctions in the lowest level of class warfare, right?
Yeah.
So both myself and Kim come from working class or lower middle class with pretensions.
There's class politics running through our work, of course. You can feel that. And there's kind of a pride to using, cheap materials and transforming them, and giving them a place and letting them really resonate. So for us, it's kind of amazing, to do, when I make a joke about that's the most expensive, piece of folk art. I'm quite proud of that. I mean, I like it. There's something, because that's kind of transgressive to me, but it's not transgressive in that I put how many 3 years of my life making that, sitting in boardrooms, which were incredibly uncomfortable for me. To do public art, it takes, literally, we had 3 months to make that, but we had to talk about it for 3 years. And for any artist to have to do that is unbelievable. The restraint is it kills you.
How does that fit into the transformation question from low to high?
Low to
or-
high. Well, the idea of folk art and then trying to elevate it. It's a kind of a strange principle. You really shouldn't be doing it. I mean, obviously not. But for some reason we find ourselves in a position where we are doing that quite often. like the unicorn, taking the unicorn horn actually came out of a thought experiment where we did what was called an impossible workshop weekend, where a group of us got together on our property for 3 days and came up with ideas that were impossible to make. And one of our smaller subgroups, which included us, was the unicorn horn and unicorn shit, and some kind of really crazy sort of vision that we had as a group. And no one really wanted to take it any further, so we sort of kept making different versions of what this unicorn horn and the shit could look like. And we've done a few versions where we have it in different types of aggregate, because we're kind of in love with rocks and so forth. And so this was like the
Tips.
The tips, yeah, a tip. So this was the kind of the classier version of that. And so it's very tartish and very...
It all comes down to, you know, value is always a contested thing.
Yeah.
Particularly in capitalism, so we just work those dynamics. For example, one of the unicorn horns is constructed around a mulch tip. And I don't know, is anyone here a gardener? If you say mulch to gardeners, they understand immediately what a completely powerful
They
material it is.
see gold, they see a resin, yeah.
But it's really just rubbishy bark, but it's a mycorrhizal gold mine.
Yeah.
And what it does for the roots of plants is fantastic. So some people look at it and they're going, really, this is the kind of stuff I want to sweep up and get off to the dump right away. And other people are looking at it with lustful eyes to see what kind of profusion of growth can come out of that opportunity. You know what I mean? So it's like that, but it also plays into those kind of business jokes, you know, where it's always about, you know, you've been given lemons, let's make lemon juice or something.
Lemon shivs,
Yeah, lemon shivs.
Okay.
That's a New Yorker joke where there's a guy.
Two prisoners sitting in the bunk, and one of them's saying, "Life gives you lemons, make lemon shivs." Yeah. Anyhow.
That'll go with the Kingston Penitentiary Museum.
Yeah, that's right.
Lemon shiv display.
I think what would be best now is if we I'd like to, first of all, thank Fastwurms for their wonderful presentation, for sharing their work with us this evening. It was wonderful. And I'd like to invite you all to join us for a reception. There's food and drink, and you're also welcome to go into the galleries and check out Superstition and the other shows that we have on view. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sarah, thank you.